I recently was given a really cool intervention in a really difficult and weird situation, and I wanted to share it with you guys because I actually think for a lot of people who deal with abandonment or deal with BPD issues, I honestly think this could be incredibly helpful for relationships. I'm not sure where it initially came from, but the person I got it from was a partner. So I'm going to tell a bit of a story beforehand, and then I'm going to explain the intervention. Now, I could get parts of this wrong, so if I do, I will obviously edit it and, maybe do a little side video to add into the end of this, so I'll let LiQWYD know, or one of the other editors. But here's the situation. So, as you know, Zena and I are polyamorous. Zena and I have one partner together and another person that we're talking to. I also have two other partners. And one of those people is a person who is a non-binary individual who is not connected to any of this shit. Like anything on the online like nothing. They're leftist, but they're not connected to any of this shit. In fact, they're generally uncomfortable with being online in any way, shape, or form. So one of the things I recently had a conversation with them about was that basically, long story short, is that my talks with them online were causing anxiety. For me, as a person with borderline personality disorder, regular interaction and reassurance can be helpful, especially when I'm not in a great place. But the problem is that my partner is not. They are a person who is not really big on internet or texting conversations. In fact, the feeling of an obligation of needing to respond provokes anxiety. And this started bringing up concerns about whether we would work or not, because we're in a relatively new relationship. And the idea being is that, is this possible to work if I have this need of reassurance and connection, and they're very adverse to it? And so what they brought up was that there is a thing that they have with their partner and with their mom, and those two things combined are a really great idea. So with their partner, what they have is that even though this is their nesting partner, they don't see them all the time. They work at a lot of different houses. They do a job that requires them to be out a lot. And the long story short is that there are a lot of times where they may not be in the same place. So what their agreement is that daily, when they wake up and when they go to bed, they just send a heart to let their partner know that they're alive, but without any need for greater communication, conversation, whatnot, right? Initially, when this was proposed, I was having a hard time with it because that might be a little too little for me. But I was willing to do it because I really like this person. I've liked them for like 10 years. Holy shit, have I liked this person for 10 years. And so what kind of ended up happening was they brought up another thing they have with their mom, who is someone who has borderline. And with this parent, what they have is a list of things that they've written called things we know to be true. Sounds interesting, right? Things we know to be true. Now, one of the things that really sucks about having borderline or abandonment issues or CPTSD is that it erodes your perspectives on what you think is happening. Is my partner mad at me? Do they not love me? Are they going to leave me? Are they no longer, sexually attracted to me? Like, your brain can go down every fucking way possible. And so what you list is a list of things that you know to be true. So I'll give examples. In this case, I'll use the relationship with chat, right? With the relationship with our community.
Yeah.
You guys should know it to be true that we will always try to be as truthful with you as humanly possible and be as direct and authentic as possible. You should always believe that to be true. You should always know it to be true that we are going to make mistakes, and when those mistakes are pointed out to us and we're able to see them, we will do our best to account for them. You should know our goal in fostering a community is to work against parasociality and thus to create a sense of camaraderie within our community where we may not get to know all of you, but there's enough of a sense of people who do get to know us or interact with us where misunderstandings or projections about us are less likely to happen. These are things you should know to be true about us and our community. That's something you guys should be able to take essentially to the bank. Now, in this system, if anything changes, it is your responsibility to tell the other party immediately. Now, in the case of my partner and their parent, if anything changes on this list of things that they know to be true, they're supposed to immediately tell them. I want you to think about that for a second. What my partner has suggested is creating a list of things I should know to be true about my relationship with them. That they really like me, that they find me attractive, that they want to see me, various things like that. They have not made the list full yet because they're busy as shit and they're working 20-hour fucking days. But that's a really amazing thing. And what they came up with, and I think this is really great, is coming back to what they have with their nesting partner, is that every day when they send that heart, that is a reification of those things that are known to be true. If I send you this heart, it means that all of these things are still true. Now think about that as a person with borderline, where your mind starts to erode and take apart the ways that you think your partners and your lovers and your friends look at you. Now, one of the things me and Zena deals with PMDD, and you can speak to more of the experience of that, though that basically takes on a BPD for dummies for 7 days thing. And I, of course, deal with borderline and ADHD. And so the problem is that we can get into some really difficult places dealing with
the distortions triggered by both of these.
Yeah. So the problem is there are times where Zena will, ask me, or I'll ask Zena, like, do you love me? Do you hate me? Are you going to leave me? Because in our minds, our, mental illness addled minds, those sound true.
Well, and it's very, very easy for our brains to make the extreme happen, right? PMD is really good at heightening emotions and making those singular emotions last for several hours. So no, it's easy to get lost by the time hour 4 rolls around of being irritated that, like, either I'm really that angry and something's really wrong in the relationship, or on my end that, like, things are just utterly broken with Jess, even though, like, we got into something really minor, right? Like, either way these things could be true, just because that's a physical response that my body has. Just like for Jess with borderline, this is just part of how Jess's brain is configured. There's not, some magic button to just make it suddenly stop doing this.
Yeah. So, absolutely. So, Sage, you said definitely going to use this. I was actually going to talk to you about it. In the case of our relationship, I actually think all of my romantic relationships, this has to be a thing, because I think it's that good. So the idea is that things we know to be true. And so in the case of me and Zena's relationship, I made something for our bedroom when we get into those spaces. So would you grab that for me?
Yeah.
Just be careful with it because these letters are not the most snug in there.
Well, and I think the other part too is that it was really fun watching Jess get to be all crafty with this, because I love watching people be crafty. It's super cute and caring.
Okay, so I have this thing left over from when I worked in office, right? I work telehealth now. But I had this thing given to me as a gift for one Christmas, and I never used it other than to put, like, Zen quotes and stuff on there. But I really like the idea of hanging this up in our bedroom. And this is what it says. Things known to be true. We are in love with each other. This is a hard statement. Full stop.
Mm-hmm.
We are staying together. Now, we're probably going to make a more fuller version of this, but just having this up on the wall, when you're in the middle of a panic attack, or you have those various ideations that are tearing apart your way of thinking, this could be really helpful, because essentially, as long as this is the agreement that me and Zena are probably going to have for something equivalent, which is, as long as this is on the wall, this is true. If one of us takes it down, there's a problem. But as long as this is up, where each of us can see this, whether that's going to be the living room or the bedroom.
We might make 2 copies of it, for multiple places, just that way both of us have it in, like, the spaces.
We might make a more bigger poster version for the living room or something.
Yeah.
But, because there's less wall space in here.
That's true.
But essentially the idea is that anytime one of us is flipping the fuck out, this is here. Somewhere in the room, accessible and interactable, so that when you're in that mind space where you're like, oh God, my partner's going to leave me, they don't really love me anymore, they don't find him sexy anymore, sit down and go, in the case of your relationship, I don't care if it's a friendship, romantic relationship, polycule, whatever. What are the things you know to be true? And make a list of them and make sure that list is accessible to everybody. And the question comes down to is, if something changes, do you agree to immediately inform the other person? Tony says, this is the lovely literal touchstone. Yes, exactly. This is why when my partner told it to me, I actually was really okay with the idea. And this is talking about someone who's incredibly struggles with borderline. When I initially was told that, like, we weren't really going to be messaging anymore, that's a lot of trust on my part. I have to kind of trust that they're going to come back. And lo and behold, diligently, I just have hearts throughout that whole chat now. I'll send them hearts, and I might send them like a picture, something that doesn't really require a response. They just need to send me hearts. The only thing they need to send me besides that is if we're setting up plans. And right now they can't do plans because they're so busy. But I'm hoping towards the end of the month I can see them. And I'm trusting that's a thing, because I do work better when I know there's a date coming up. But right now I have to trust without a date that they're going to come back and be there. And every single day I've gotten a heart. Every single time they're going to bed or when they're waking up, that they are doubling down on the fact that they like me and they care about me and they want me. I think this type of behavior, this type of action is revolutionary. I think this is actually something that is incredibly beneficial in relationships, especially with people who have struggled deeply with very real abandonment issues and very real issues of anxiety, fear, panic attacks. I think we have to go through, and rather than sit there and go, do I know this? Do they actually love me? Whatnot? I think you have to go through and legitimately, Schubert, welcome back, by the way. I haven't seen you in a while. I think you need to do something like this. And so that's what me and Zena are doing as a commitment, is we're going to have this up. I got to make this today. I was really happy with it. And Zena and I are going to have this up in the room. And again, the agreement we're going to make is something to the effect of, if this gets taken down, that's a thing. We'll talk about it. But as long as this is up, these two things are true.
Or, if we're updating or adding to it, that's obvious.
That's obvious, yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, Zena is my fiance. Regardless of the number of partners we have or I have, Zena is my fiance. Zena is the person that I plan on marrying. Whether that virtual girl, that is normal to feel what? Like, power of Christ compels you? What do you mean? Why feel Peepo Christ? What do you mean by Peepo Christ?
Let's finish up what the talk is, and then we'll kind of see what virtual girl's referring to.
Yeah.
How does that sound?
Sounds good. So,
okay.
So the point with this is, again, I want to reiterate this. So in the relationship that I have with this person, who is really, really hot, anytime you are in relationship of some type where there is feelings of insecurity or instability, you make a list of things that you know to be true. And this means things that are known, I'm going to say this, known to be true in all cases, or in most cases, unless mental illness. So a good example of this is, there may be times where I get so mad where I, really can't see how much I care about Zena because I'm just so angry. But the moment that fades, I know again that I love them. Like that just comes back. Like, we're not talking about temporary states. We're talking about
things that apply all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you make a list of things. You can update it all the time you want. And again, you can have this with your polycule, with your roommates, with your relationship, with your whoever.
Your friends.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then again, maybe come up with a way in which this is solidified. So in the case of me and Zena, this will stay up unless we're editing it or something has changed. In the case of myself and my other partner, they're going to send me hearts, and those hearts are representative of the fact that those things are true.
Well, and this person is, I don't know if we said it explicitly yet, but this person's especially long distance. Not super long distance, but long enough where it's like...
Other side of the state?
Yeah. But still, like, a decent amount far away, and they do a lot of traveling, all of that. And so I like this a lot for long distance relationships too, where you can't see someone every time. Or you may not, if you've got somebody who's traveling a lot for work, they may not be able to
always do long messages or be online a lot or things like that. And so the problem is, how do you convey to them with a very small amount of information, a lot of data?
Mm-hmm.
You send them a heart, or you send them something meaningful.
Yep.
And so the thing is like, a virtual girl asked, being scared not to get that heart text. So here's the thing. That's the social contract. Now, it is possible my partner could forget to send me that heart. And in which case, if that becomes a regular thing, I'm gonna bring it the fuck up. But they haven't failed yet. And I don't believe they will. I actually think this is a reoccurring thing. In fact, I can actually check real quick. Has this person failed in any way, shape, or form?
There's a lot of hearts.
So last one sent was at 7:45 a.m. One was sent last night at 1:30 a.m. 3 p.m. Saturday. Yeah. There were like several Saturday. But yeah, basically, long story short is, not only do these convey I'm alive, they convey all of the things we know to be true. And I expect to get a list from them at some point about those things.
Well, and I have to imagine, too, where if there are days or times where, like, a heart's not able to be sent, no, you'll probably figure out later why that was. It might have been that, you know, a really long migraine happened or something was going on in their life, right? Like, we do know that those things. And I think over time, you know, building that trust and that communication does solidify, you know what, I know a heart's going to come eventually, even if it's not right now, even if it's not at the usual time. I know that there will still be a heart when they're able to, because I know that they have that, you know, communication built up with me, right? So I think it'll hopefully make it easier to kind of deal with the times when they're not necessarily able to be as punctual kind of thing. And there's no, and granted, there is no like specific time frame like in the plan other than like general parts of like the schedule. So
I also want to bring up a video that I watched earlier today, and I'm just bringing this up on the fly. This wasn't planned. There's a video on the channel Thermia, which is a fan channel for Vosh, and I know we are honor bound to try to avoid the Voosh topic, but still like his stuff. Shut up. So here's the thing. There's a video on the Thermia channel called Vosh Explains His Ideal Relationship, and it's a lot of memes, but there's something he brings up in there that I actually listened to today, and I noticed I had resistance to, and then realized it was really important. It's that when you start catching a lot of really intense feels for a person, it's sitting down and choosing how you're interpreting those feels. The tendency culturally is to interpret really intense feels as love, but sometimes it's not love. Sometimes it's just infatuation. Sometimes it's just like. Sitting down and maybe journaling and writing about that. Setting up what your intentions are or what your expectations are for a relationship. Mm-hmm. And the reason I'm bringing this up in regards to this piece is that the reason why this conversation about what we know to be true is so important is that in some ways, whether it's the things you should know are true for me or the things we know that are true within the relationship, you're having that dialogue, which means that you're choosing the level to which you're going to engage with that person. You have to almost, to some degree, make it aware to them what the interpretation of the relationship for you is, and that's a great way for the both of you to come to that same place.
It's like doing magic and setting up your ritual, right?
Yeah, or
you know, you're setting up the intentions kind of thing with everyone.
You mean like pagan ritual stuff?
I was just talking in general, just as fluffy. It just reminds me a lot
but
of.
Not everyone does fluffy stuff, so they may not know what the fuck you're on about right now.
I really am not touching in any like magic stuff. Anyone who has read a fucking like fantasy novel.
True.
I'm only talking on the fantasy novel level of hey, you know, you set up your
and then we read Silver Ravenwolf. Sorry. Oh.
You're setting up like your it's a ritual, it's a thing that you're reifying, a thing that you're looking at, and something that has been chosen very intentionally. There we go. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Sage said, I'm a total slut for good communication. This is perfect. Yeah, I'm a big fan of it as well. I think Zena and I talked about this and we're both really wowed by it. Mm-hmm. And so this is kind of what I'm going to put in a lot of my relationships is just this idea of like, well, what do we know? This is what you need to be, this is for me and Zena as a thing we should both know. But I honestly think in a two-person relationship, what I think would be another way the better way or the other way to do this is to, what is true for me? And then what is true for you? And that way it's in your own language and the other person can take it and read it and have it with them. This is just shorthand. We'll probably do our own lists when we sit down and do over it. But this is just a relationship key. As Tony in YouTube chat said, it's a touchstone. I think that's really cool. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to share this with everyone because I feel like I got a gift from my partner and I wanted to share that with everybody because it is one of those things where, like, when I hear things that are really helpful for BPD people, it is important to jump on that stuff. And so I highly recommend you share this with people you know who deal with abandonment, CPS, PTSD, borderline. If you're in a relationship and you have any of those things, PMDD,
Yep.
anything else that causes mood disorder, let's face it, anxiety, depression, share it with them. Put this there so that the person doesn't start getting in their head. Depression can erode the shit out of the way what things you know about a relationship.
Oh, absolutely, right? I think one of the really cool parts with poly is the sense of community. Like, it's really lovely to be in a space where, like, just there is multiple partners around just supporting her, and I really, really like that. And it feels like I get, like, just being supported also helps me feel supported too. You know, by
because you
extension.
get breaks because you don't have to be my only support now.
Yeah. Well, and not that I always have to have a break, but, like,
I mean, sometimes you need breaks.
I mean, yeah. When your partner's having a lot of panic attacks, trust me, Jess and I both need breaks from each other. But it also means that, no, we can share some of these ideas. We can have more of a community or family feeling. And because it's, like, different partner stuff, there is a very much of a found family feel to it. Jess and I haven't really always had that. So, yeah, I really like that. It also reminded me of the index card from the beginning of a relationship.
Oh, no, the index card was very much the proto version of this.
Well, that's got a slightly different purpose, too.
Well, that was basically different interventions that are helpful when I'm freaking the fuck out.
Yeah. When Jess first got the, we did this, what?
Do you want to just talk about that tonight?
Yeah, or I could just share it right now. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. We could just talk about it now instead of doing a separate video on it. Just go ahead.
Yeah. So.
Keep talking. I'm gonna grab a drink.
Yeah, go ahead. When Jess and I first got together, during that summer, she started having panic attacks, like, really, really bad, like standing in the shower and being like, oh, wait a minute, and just freezing up and figuring out later that was a panic attack. And so Jess got into therapy and was starting EMDR and wasn't really sure what quite was going on with all of this, right? These had kind of seemed to have come out of nowhere. Or at least in the severity, felt like they came out of nowhere. And so after that, just got the diagnosis from the therapist at the time. It's just as they were talking, well, what do you think is actually going on? And, well, the therapist was like, borderline. And then talked about, like, stigma versus what borderline actually is. So with all the panic attacks, I felt very lost because I didn't always know what to do. And I'd actually felt lost with previous friendships or relationships. Because in the past, when I had asked for help with how to deal with when they were in those states, I didn't get help. And I have no idea what to do because, like, it's not intuitive what to do when someone else is having a panic attack. It's not. All right. And there's lots of ways that you could say things or do things that would make things more difficult, right? Or if something you did seems to have triggered the other person, no, that shit's really, really hard. So what Jess and her therapist worked on was making me an index card with 5 things on it that I could do while Jess was having a panic attack. And that way I could kind of avoid my own panic attack as well, because I had a list of things that I could do or say. And a lot of these things were chosen by Jess and worked on with the therapist. So that way there were phrases that were, like, really key to work that they were doing. So that way they would kind of be able to dig in there and get to, important stuff. And I could say it quickly and Jess would know, okay, this is what the thing is being referenced, and I've done this work, so I have an idea of what of how, what I need to do for myself when I hear this from Zena. And it was never like I have to take care of my partner thing. Like, it wasn't like I have to do these things constantly, but it was just, hey, here's help for you so you don't feel lost, you don't feel stuck, and you feel like you are still, able to support me.
Yeah. Yeah, and it takes away the feeling of, like, helplessness that people have when you're in the middle of a trigger, right?
Well, and it got us through a lot of triggers way faster, right? Like, because again, it could shorthand things, right? We knew what these things were pointing at or what the script was. And so it was, over time especially, it was easier to be like, okay, now that I'm hearing this, I know that I can kind of get myself into a calm state. That was easier to do over time. And I eventually made a card for Jess as well.
Uh-huh.
You know, and so I really like having these things for people, especially written out. There's a lot of power in actually having it written down in front of you, because then your mind can't twist it. You can't forget about it as easily. You know, somebody's put a lot of effort into writing it, so they're more likely to remember it.
It's just again, it's got their handwriting. As long as it's legible, like, you can get so many things out of it that are...
Obviously, if you need to type it, just do it. You know, it
sure.
counts.
But the point still stands is that you're getting it from that person. They can put little affectations on it. There's a lot of really cute shit they can do that are really nice to be able to interact and be able to, like, let you know that that's them. So again, the index card is really good for triggers. The things we know to be true is really good for sort of avoiding those triggers, or in some ways reifying things when, you know, certain types of mental illness can kind of erode those knowledges. It is getting late, so we're gonna kind of probably call it here, but we hope those are helpful and beneficial. I really wanted to share this with you guys because I was really excited about it. It's really kind of helped my mental health state, and again, I'm probably going to put it in all of my relationships because I just think it's beneficial.
Well, and I think this is a good example of relationship accommodations. How to ADHD has used this word in terms of accommodating ADHD when somebody has it in a relationship, and I think this is a really good one for accommodating other mental illness. And I really like that this is a really nice bridge between two different mental illnesses that seemingly conflict with each other, right? So,
well, and
if anything, this is probably way more stable than not having anything, right? Like,
well, and again, there's no harm in doing these things, right? Like, they're still going to have a benefit, so why not? I think that the last thing I'll say to you guys on this is that try this stuff out. Let us know what your thoughts are, and you know, if you have any questions, we'll try to fulfill them out as best we can. But
yeah.
You know, just try to be gentle with each other, and we're gonna cut the segment here, but we'll see you guys in the next video.
Yeah.
Bye. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, consider donating to us. You can support us on our website, transgirltherapist.org. You can also help us on our Patreon, link below, or you can become a member here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching.